Hare Krishna, everyone, and welcome to this week's virtual Sunday feast here at ISKCON Chicago, the home of Sri Sri Kishore Kishori, and on behalf of Srila Prabhupada, a big welcome. Thank you for joining us. Today, we will have a couple of very special features. The first is Arav will be leading us in Narsima prayers, followed by an announcement by His Grace Anuttama Prabhu, and then followed by the Sunday Feast keynote, which will be given by Parama Rupa Prabhu. And the exciting part of that is it's his first Sunday Feast here for the Chicago community. So a big welcome and thank you for doing that service. So I'll turn it first over to Arav, who will lead us in Narsima prayers. He is a student of Radha Kund Mataji as part of the Vamsi Vaishnav School of Music. Thank you so much for taking us on this journey of Narsima prayers, Arav. Hare Krishna.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Arav, for that really beautiful rendition of Narsima prayers. No, I'll turn it over to Anuttama Prabhu, our GBC, for a very important announcement. I'll spotlight you, and then please take it away, Prabhu.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Shodananda Prabhu. So I'm just going to be with you a few minutes. I apologize. I'm actually in the middle of a board meeting with New Vrindavan, their annual, monthly board meeting. And I took about a 10, 15-minute break just to be with you for a short announcement. I was actually able to visit the Chicago temple 2 weeks ago. I was there with Jai Krishna Prabhu, who's our zonal supervisor, had a chance to spend time with some of you, and of course have darshan with Kishore. So that was a really wonderful opportunity. And it's just a brief but important announcement. As you know, Himangi Mataji, she resigned from our temple president role at the end of last year after 3+ years of very dedicated service. So we've been without a temple president, a real clear scope for leadership or management of the temple since that time. And the board of directors has been overseeing what happens with the temple in that period of time. So we've been discussing with several months. We got input from a lot of the different members of the community, the idea of possibly creating a temple council as an alternative to identifying a temple president at this time. Most ISKCON temples have a temple president who's kind of the active spiritual and managerial leader, but there are temples in various parts of the world that have councils, or they have a kind of a group leadership. In addition to board of directors, that's the legal authority of the temple to have a council. So we got input from a lot of devotees. We decided we want to go ahead and try that structure. So we've been talking for some time about how to constitute that. And we decided just this week to make this final decision to go ahead with the council structure. And I wanted to make that what I think for me and hopefully all of us is a happy announcement. We've decided 5 members of the council to have a 1-year term. Specific roles, responsibilities are yet to be determined, but this is the basic plan. So I want to congratulate and thank these devotees who are going to be serving on the council. Subal Prabhu, a little bit of background. Most of you know Subal, or most of these, all of these devotees, hopefully, but just a little bit of a brief background. Subal Prabhu has been actually practicing Bhakti Yoga and Krishna consciousness since 1983. We know he's a very senior member of our congregation who loves Kirtan and has served the community in various roles and leadership roles in the past. Radharaman Prabhu has been practicing Bhakti and active in ISKCON for 15 years. And has been an active member of the board for many, many years and has served as various capacities, including the head Pujari and the vice president for some time. Devin Krishna Prabhu has been practicing Bhakti Yoga for over a decade. We've got some seasoned leaders here. Currently serving as the temple commander, and he assists with the Krishna lunch program. Paramatma Prabhu, many of you know, has been practicing Bhakti Yoga for more than a decade, and he's currently serving as the director of congregational development and very active with some of the Bhakti Vriksha groups and teaching and preaching. And last of our 5, Balaram Prabhu, who's been practicing Krishna consciousness for more than 2 decades and is also an active member of the board. So these 5 devotees have been selected to serve for a 1-year term, could be extended, but a 1-year term at this point in time. They're going to be a meeting and discussing and developing systems, how the council exactly will work to give us leadership in Chicago, reaching out to the community, identifying what are the priorities, and of course, with one big priority, of course, opening up the temple again and restarting more of our outreach work and all of that. So just want to ask all the devotees to give your support, please, to this idea of a council and support these 5 devotees. We know that Srila Prabhupada, he stressed very often the need for cooperation within our community. Sometimes he said that this Christian consciousness can never be stopped from the outside. Nothing can stop us, governments, different opposition that comes. But internally, we can actually slow ourselves down if we don't work together, if we don't try to cooperate. So I'd like to ask everybody, please, to do that. It's a very important time for the temple. We know, along with the rest of the country and many other places, and hopefully the whole world shortly, but at least now Krishna's blessed the United States. We're coming out of this COVID pandemic. Rules are loosening. Temples all across the country opening up at different pace according to their local conditions. But we look forward to the temple opening more and more. There's going to be a lot of opportunities to grow as a community, refocus our energy on devotee care. Now that we can meet each other again face to face, all these Zoom events are wonderful, but we all know they're not as good as being together in the temple with the Lord and with the devotees in the same room. Opportunities for increased book distribution, other forms of outreach, more care for the deities, things like that are priorities. So that's the announcement. Just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. It's been some time. We haven't had a clear focus on the management of the structure. Management structure other than the board of directors has been there all along. But that's the plan, and please offer all these devotees your support. Next time you see them, offer your congratulations and also your support, because it's congratulations in the sense of thank you for taking on this special service. But we also know services come with a lot of responsibilities and additional pressure sometimes. You know, being in a leadership and a management role means the pleasure of serving Krishna in this added capacity, but also means oftentimes meeting problems. So please support them, help them, offer your appreciation to them. It'd be much appreciated to all of you. And in closing, thank you for your dedication to Sri Sri Kishore Kishori and Srila Prabhupada's mission. I look forward, hopefully, to seeing you all soon. I hope I can visit Chicago again in the next few months. And Param Prabhu, as Yashodananda said, it's your first Sunday feast lecture. So I feel I should be quiet quickly and get out of the way, get back to my board meeting. I wish you all success. I'm sorry I can't stay to hear your lecture. I'm sure it's going to be very enlivening, but it'll be recorded. Maybe I can listen to it in the future. And thank you, and thanks all the devotees for being here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Nuttama Prabhu, for that announcement. Next, we'll turn it over to our speaker, Parama Rupa Prabhu. So big thank you for taking on the service. So Parama Rupa Prabhu is based in Boston. He's going to be continuing our Brilliant as the Sun series. And his topic is called Blueprint of a Successful Marriage. And this is an overview of 3rd Canto, 24th chapter, continuing our Brilliant as the Sun series. And just a little bit about Parama Rupa Prabhu. He's a very accomplished person academically from a professional perspective, as well as a devotee. He leads outreach initiatives in any college he touches. Just seeing his biography there, it was pretty amazing. Just how inspired both he and his wife are in sharing this Krishna consciousness in a very relatable way. And so I'm sure that'll come through in his presentation. So Paramarupa Prabhu, a big thank you for this and for your flexibility and all the hard work that you definitely put into this and in everything you do, honestly.
Thank you, Yashodanandan Prabhu, for your kind introduction. And I beg for the blessings of all the devotees here to make this time really useful for all of us. So I'll get started with a short Jai Radha Madhav. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Vrajajanaranjana Jaya Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Jaya Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Kishore Kishori Jaya Kishore Kishori Jaya Kishore Kishori Jaya Kishore Kishore Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Krishna. Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Gadamayham Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Padidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So tonight we have a very relevant sort of topic for those who have already entered into Grihastha ashram or those who are in the process of entering into Grihastha ashram. As Yashodanandan Prabhu pointed out, this is in continuation of the series of discourses on Srimad Bhagavatam, and we are going through a journey in in series of chapters in the Canto 3, which are dedicated towards the understanding of how the whole lineage of Swayambhuva Manu, the lineage started by Lord Brahma, they are so glorious and presenting many practical examples for all of us to derive inspiration from. Sometime during Srila Prabhupada's very wonderful pinnacle of the movement, Prabhupada would, pinnacle state of the movement, there would be many reporters and visitors who will come and take darshan of Srila Prabhupada. So one time Srila Prabhupada was visited by an archaeologist, and Prabhupada asked him, "So who are you?" And so he introduced himself, and then he presented himself as an archaeologist. And then Prabhupada asked, "So what do you do?" So he said, "I study primitive people." So Prabhupada said that I am the founder Acharya of ISKCON and I study advanced people. So here is an example of a very exalted sage Kardama, who is considered to be one of the progenitors of mankind. and who had been entrusted with a very important role of generating worthy descendants. So although my presentation was meant to be based on chapter 24, I took the opportunity to derive inspiration from chapter 21 onwards, just so that you can see the context as well as the arriving at the crescendo in chapter 24. So there are 4 main goals that we can identify as a part of married life. So Grihastha, this word literally means to be situated in the house. Grihastha. So one may be situated in the house, but one's consciousness need not be. So one's consciousness can be still fully absorbed in transcendence. Because just like any other ashram, so generally the human life is divided into 4 levels of existence when we enter into this material world. So there is the beginning phase is the student life or the brahmachari life. And then we transition into grihastha life to apply all the principles that we have learned during the student life. And then the life is meant to then take us to another stage where we have to progressively detach ourselves from all the various encumbrance of material life, because the hope is that with the different varieties of conditional state of affairs within this material world, there will be enough opportunity to understand that this material world is not a place to look for permanent residence in, but to look for higher goals of life. To understand that ultimately I'm a spirit soul, part and parcel of God, and therefore my ultimate destination is not just restricted within my current situation. So keeping that in mind, one wants to advance forward, and therefore one recedes oneself voluntarily after reaching a mature stage of one's life. And then finally, the goal is to go back to the spiritual kingdom, as Shri Krishna himself states the mission statement of the Bhagavad Gita in the 4th chapter, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naeti mamiti. So Arjuna, that the mission statement of the Bhagavad Gita is to understand that we are not meant to lead a life of struggle in this material world, but to see how we can organize our life in such a way that we can go back to Godhead and not return back again. And mam upetya punarjanma dukhalayam ashashvatam. So after reaching Krishna's abode, there is no return back. So mam upetya tu kantya punarjanma na vidyate. There is no possibility of one's returning back after having secured that journey back to Godhead. And therefore we all should aim for it. And therefore the word ashrama literally means it's a place for spiritual cultivation. So just like any other ashram, Grihastha ashram is also a place for spiritual cultivation. And therefore naturally that is the first goal of married life. The second goal, naturally, when we want to dedicate our life spiritually, our life needs to be guided. Our life needs to be guided by those who have seen life from another perspective or from a higher perspective, because of the strength of their realizations, because of their strength of connection, the deep connection that they carry with the Supreme Lord. So we are very fortunate that we are able to receive direction in the line of a bona fide disciplic succession. And Srila Prabhupada himself has given very purposeful devotional engagements for all of us. So if we are simply able to carry forward those directions, and particularly when one is taking the step of getting initiated, then those directions can come from one's own spiritual master. So in other words, the life becomes a place of spiritual cultivation when we are ready to receive directions in our life. And then one of the glorious features of the Grihastha ashram is that we don't have to feel lonely in our taking the whole challenge against Maya, where we have to cross over an insurmountable energy of the Supreme Lord. As Krishna says, that Devi Hiesha Gunamai Mama Maya Duratyaya. It's very, very difficult to overcome this material energy of Krishna, which is surrounding us at all the times. And the only way we can get over it is when we mature our surrender unto Krishna, and when that surrender becomes more and more exclusive and filled with love and devotion. So, Mam eva ye prapadyante, mayam etam tarantite. So that's the only way we can actually overcome this insurmountable force. But then we can become very lonely in that struggle. Therefore, if we have a partner, then we can assist each other in that journey back to Godhead. And therefore, that forms the goal number 3, where one can assist each other in Grihastha life with a mood of service towards one another, and with a very clear purpose in mind. And for whatever we might be doing, we should connect back to that purpose. So that, therefore, is the goal number 3 in Grihastha life. Now, when we are coming together in Grihastha ashram, there is definitely a license given. As Krishna says that dharma aviruddha kamo asmi, that Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that I am that kind of sex life which is not against the religious principles. So we are meant to come together in Grihastha ashram, carrying that responsibility of bringing worthy dependents into the material world. And by worthy, what I mean is that they themselves can then carry the responsibility of spiritual life on their head, and then disseminate the knowledge further for helping others in improving their life. And therefore that becomes the goal number 4 for Grihastha life. So now for the rest of the presentation, I'm going to show how life of Kardama Muni is fully centered around these 4 goals of Grihastha life, and then we will conclude finally after appreciating the whole series of events. So it is interesting to note that actually the austerity for Kardama Muni for taking a life of responsibility began before even stepping into marriage. So he has received orders from Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma, who is acting as his father as well as his spiritual master in this case, and he has given him orders for producing progeny. So it is expressed by Lord Brahma that he wanted him to generate progeny. Now, praja shrishte, praja shrijeti, this word may just mean that we create progeny. That may sound very ordinary, but implicit within that instruction is to create qualified progeny. And therefore, the question of austerity comes into picture. because commensurate with the austere status of the individuals who are coming together for union, so depending on the purity of consciousness of those individuals, certain kind of souls will get attracted towards the womb of the mother. And therefore, one has to cultivate that quality that is needed to produce a very high quality descendant. And therefore, Brahma's command is not about just creating children, but naturally the command is about creating qualified children. And therefore, going through austerity is inbuilt within the instruction itself. So as directed by Lord Brahma, Brahmano Uditaha, what Kardama Muni did is that Saraswatyam tapastepe sahasranam sama dasha. So sahasranam dasha means 10,000. Sama means years. So Kardama Muni went through 10,000 years of austerity. Where? In the banks of river Saraswati. And that austerity is not just an impersonal sort of austerity, but he was entering into the state of samadhi powered by his yoga, powered by his yogic prowess, and then his consciousness is completely focused on pleasing the Supreme Lord. So sam prapede harim bhaktya. And Krishna in this verse is extolled as the person who is the bestower of all blessings. And therefore, one's objective for any goal in life should be to first please Krishna. Because if Krishna is pleased, yasmin tushte jagat tushta. Everything else that is desirable will automatically enter into one's life. So therefore, the sage, in his trance of bhakti, entered into the spirit of pleasing Krishna. And sure enough, pleased by the sage's penance and austerity, which was really for a long period of time. Now this is Satya Yuga, therefore he has 100,000 years, practically speaking, at his disposal. So out of that, 10,000 years of austerity is understandable. But still, it is by the power of his devotion that it attracted the audience of the Supreme Lord. And the Supreme Lord came, and Kardama Muni got an opportunity to express his desire. Now, as you saw, his desire is completely subservient to the desire of Lord Brahma. And therefore, he, upon getting the opportunity to place his desire before the Supreme Lord, he connected himself with the instruction that he has received from Lord Brahma. And therefore expressed that I want to get married to a person who is of similar caliber, so samana shilam. And then, in this way, he approached the Supreme Lord, who is considered to be Moolam Ashesha Moolam, which means the person who is the source of everything. And therefore, any kind of desire can be fulfilled by that Supreme Lord. Therefore, Durashaya Kama Dugangri Pasya. And he placed his desire in front of such a Supreme Lord. And then Krishna revealed that he already knew what is in his heart. And therefore, Krishna had already arranged. So, viditva tava chaityam me pureva samayojitat. So, he has already arranged, and his coming before him is simply to acknowledge his having perfectly worshipped the Supreme Lord. So Sama Archita means that he has perfected in his worship. And therefore, Krishna came there to announce that his desire is already fulfilled, because he wanted to reciprocate with his perfect state of devotion. And then Krishna, or Lord Vishnu, he presented before Kardama Muni 3 prophecies. The first is that the Swayambhava Manu is going to come along with his queen Shatarupa and his daughter, and is going to present their daughter Devahuti to Kardama Muni. Second thing is that at the end of his life, Kardama Muni will attain the perfection of self-realization. And the third is that the Supreme Lord himself will take birth. In fact, he stated that he will take shelter of Kardama Muni's semen and then appear in the womb of Mother Devahuti. So the way Lord Krishna expressed is that Krishna is going to expand himself as Lord Kapila, entering into the womb of Mother Devahuti, and that form of Krishna, in the form of Lord Kapila, will furthermore instruct Mother Devahuti. And in this way, just as the Supreme Lord has directed, Kardama Muni's desire got fulfilled, and just like as the Supreme Lord had stated, Swayambhuva Manu came along with his retinue and offered his daughter, and then the marriage was successfully done. But before marriage, Kardama Muni placed one important condition. And what is the condition? That he said that I'm going to accept Devahuti under the condition that after Kapil Muni is born, then I'm going to leave home to lead a life of pure devotion. And then after their marriage, Kardama Muni and Mother Devahuti, they demonstrated an ideal Grihastha life. So the way Srimad Bhagavatam describes their married life is as follows. So first of all, they were striking a great balance between intimacy and respect. So it is stated that Vishrambhena Atma Shachena Gauravena Damena Cha Shushrushaya Sauhridena Vacha Madhurya Chabho. So Mother Devahuti was engaged in serving Kardama Muni, whom she was treating as her spiritual masters. Therefore, in this description, we can also derive a lot of inspiration for serving our spiritual master as well. So she was serving with intimacy and inner purity, with respect and controlled senses, and with a mood of service and well-wishing spirit. So it's not that seeing this example, one may think that it's only wife's responsibility to serve the husband in this spirit. But the point is that this whole balance of intimacy and respect need to be there from both the sides. And the mood of serving each other and assisting each other to go back to the spiritual abode should be there in the central part of one's Grihastha life. And that is the example that is set wonderfully by Kardama Muni and Devahuti. And then furthermore, their relationship is wonderfully described as having no selfish consideration. So Devahuti was serving Kardama Muni, giving up all selfish interests. And specifically, it is called out that she was working sanely and diligently, and at the same time, in a pleasing manner. So this principle of pleasing each other does not mean that we just try to attend to each other's needs. Of course, as a part of the Grihastha life, we will see how Kardama Muni attends to the need of his wife in a really big way. But the idea of pleasing is to create a pleasing atmosphere where when there are dependents, they can also feel like the house is like a shelter for them. But if the husband and wife, they get into the quarreling mode and just trying to find faults in each other, then the Grihastha life can become quite chaotic. And therefore we can derive lot of inspiration and direction from these wonderful examples that this couple is setting. And then after serving so nicely, then Kardama Muni was about to leave, and then Devahuti um, reminded that actually you made a promise, and the promise that you made was that you will give me children. And then Devahuti mentions a very important statement, that the children are a great quality for a chaste woman, and therefore she is requesting uh, for children, so that they can take responsibilities for their dependents, and in this way help other souls go back to the spiritual abode. So Kardama Muni, as I mentioned, he fulfilled the request of his wife in a really grand way. He created an aerial mansion, and then by the power of his mystic yoga, he made a universal tour with his wife, after transforming all the externals that are necessary to facilitate that happiness and joy that they can share with one another. And then not only that, sage Kardama Muni, he divided himself into 9 forms for expanding the pleasure that can be conceivably possible when they are together in union. So in this way, after going through this whole series of wonderful exchanges with one another, then Devahuti gave birth to 9 daughters. And after giving birth to 9 daughters, then again Kardama Muni was about to leave. And Devahuti requested that actually I'm feeling really sorry, because in the beginning, so what happened was that before Kardama Muni created that whole aerial mansion, he was ready to give the entire fruit of austerity to Mother Devahuti. But Mother Devahuti said that I want to have children. And therefore there was a switch of context there. And now when Kardama Muni was ready to leave, she was very regretful that I did not take full advantage of this wonderful association that I have. And therefore he's saying, she's very affectionately presenting before Kardama Muni that you have fulfilled all my promises, yet please grant me one more to this surrendered soul. And what is that? Please give me fearlessness. So indirectly, she was asking for a son, because the 9 daughters will get married, and therefore she will be left alone. So it is not that Kardama Muni necessarily was going to leave, but it was kind of a part of the way the pastimes were enacted. Because Kardama Muni had already received the prophecy of the Supreme Lord. So this just gave them an opportunity to have a sweet exchange. So then Kardama Muni presented with a very affectionate heart these wonderful words, that please do not be disappointed. Why? Because as promised by the Supreme Lord, he is going to enter into your womb very shortly. And therefore, there is no question of despondency. And then he offers some advice to his wife, that you have taken sacred vows to worship the Supreme Lord. So please worship the Supreme Lord with great faith, sense control, and with a heart completely disposed towards following directions. So the specific words here are Shraddhaya, Damena, Niyamena. So these are all words indicating that one is really faithful to following instructions. So it is worthwhile for us to note that Lord Kapila did not immediately appear. So there was a long period of austerity that this couple had to go through. Even after those 10,000 years of austerity that Kardama Muni has already gone through. But for Mother Devahuti, she also had to take some responsibility. So after this, the appearance of Kapila Dev did not follow immediately. So it is expressed that Tasyam Bahu Tithe Kale Bhagavan Madhusudana Kardamam Viryam Apanno Jagge Agnir Iva Daruni. That after many years, then the Supreme Lord appeared in the sage's semen and then got transferred into the womb of Mother Devahuti. So why is this mentioned again and again that he's appearing in the semen of Kardama Muni? So here it is clarified very beautifully with this analogy that because the Supreme Lord is everywhere, he is omnipresent. So it is not at all wonderful for the Supreme Lord to appear out of anything. So just like Lord Nrsimhadev appeared from the pillar. So here the example is given that like fire is already there in the wood, and therefore for fire to come out of the wood is not at all extraordinary. As likewise, the Supreme Lord can present himself from anywhere. So it's not that he had to literally descend from his abode, but he simply has to show himself up. Then when Kapila Dev took shelter of the womb of Mother Devahuti, Lord Brahma appeared. And he came along with the sages, with Narad Muni, with the 4 Kumaras. And it was a very purposeful visit because the 9 grown-up daughters were there. And therefore, Lord Brahma wanted to arrange for the marriage of those 9 daughters with the progenitors. And therefore, after appearing, then Lord Brahma, first of all, congratulated the sage. He was extremely pleased with Kardama Muni's austerity, and particularly his carrying out Lord Brahma's instruction with non-duplicitous consciousness. So he says, Tvaya me apachitis tata kalpita nirvyalikaha. So this nirvyalikaha is a very important phrase in this particular verse, which means that the austerity and the penance that Kardama Muni went through and his entire life so far had been completely filled with heart filled with non-duplicity. In other words, there is only one thing that he's focusing on is how to make the instruction of Lord Brahma successful. And therefore, Lord Brahma was extremely pleased with the sage. And then Lord Brahma turned to Mother Devahuti and then reinstated the purpose for which these two individuals came together in marriage. And he said that the Supreme Lord has already entered your womb and he will travel all around. And then he will travel all around after cutting off the knot of your ignorance and doubt. So in other words, Lord Brahma is giving a benediction here that Kapila Dev, after he has taken birth, he will then he will be responsible for the liberation of Mother Devahuti. And in this way, after getting instructed by Lord Brahma, Sage Kardama and Devahuti, they carried out the responsibility as parents. They married their 9 daughters to the progenitors of the universe. And then Lord Kapila, after after Lord Kapila has taken birth, then sage Kardama turns to Lord Kapila in a secluded place and offers his heartful prayers. And these prayers are really wonderful. I just picked the most pertinent one, where Lord Kapila is surrendering sage Kardama is surrendering unto the lotus feet of Lord Kapila, that I surrender unto you, O independently powerful Lord Kapila, the supreme transcendental person, the fully cognizant maintainer of the universe. And in this way, after surrendering, then the sage makes a request. And it's a very extraordinary request. And the request is that I wish to accept the order of a traveling mendicant, always thinking of you in my heart, free of lamentation. It's an extraordinary request because the Supreme Lord has already entered into his household, and he is planning to leave the household to search after the Supreme Lord. So that looks really unusual. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that Sage Kardama wanted to set a great example for all of us, how important it is to follow the system of the spiritual order that is set up by the Vedic scriptures. So after Grihastha life, one is mandatorily needing to leave and live a life of total dedication to the Supreme Lord. So leaving household is mandatory, and that's how it is exemplified by Sage Kardama. Now, leaving household in the modern context, we should not get confused that we have to now look for forest in the Himalayas where to dwell and so on and so forth. But the idea of leaving household here means, in our context, to progressively think about getting out of the unnecessary attachments of material life and dedicating ourselves fully in spiritual consciousness. So another reason why Kardama Muni makes this request was, you can see in the previous verse, the mood in which sage Kardama was worshipping the Supreme Lord Kapila Muni is Kapila Dev, is that here is my Lord, I am your servant, I surrender unto you. So he does not carry a Vatsalya sort of mood towards the Supreme Lord, and therefore there will be a mixture in the rasa there, and therefore in order to have that proper rasa maintained, it was important for him to leave the household. And Lord Kapila in turn gave his full blessings. He said, Gacha kamam maya prishto mai sanyasta karmana jitva su durjayam vrityum amritatvaya mam bhaja. That go as you desire, being sanctioned by me, and surrendering all your actions unto me, you worship me for eternal life, conquering the unconquerable death. So this is the blessings that Kapila Dev gave. And then sage Kardama perfected his life in this way, that Vasudeve Bhagavati Sarvagye Pratyagatmani Parena Bhakti Bhavena Labdhatma Mukta Bandhana. So he became completely free from material bondage, being situated in devotional mood for the Supreme Lord, and by dint of which he is now seeing the Supreme Lord everywhere and every being. So now he achieved, his vision became perfect. And ultimately, it is expressed that Ichha Dvesha Vihinena Sarvatra Samachetasa Bhagavad Bhakti Yuktena Prapta Bhagavati Gati. Being freed from hatred and desire, being equal to everyone, and endowed with devotion towards the Supreme Lord, sage Kardama finally attained the supreme destination. Now, it is interesting to note here that our entry point into this material world is described in the 7th chapter by Krishna, that Ichha Dvesha Samuthena Dvandva Mohena Bharata. Sarva Bhutani Samuham Sarge Yanti Parantapa. So everyone without exception enters into this material world filled with Ichha and Dvesha, which means a desire to enjoy separate from the Supreme Lord. And because of that enjoyment spirit, we enter into this material world. And you can see here Kardama Muni ejecting out of this material world exactly in the reversed way. He is becoming freed from hatred and desire. And this equality of vision is a byproduct of his being situated in the perfection of his devotional service. In this way, naturally, the kingdom of God became his most natural achievement. So you can see, therefore, how Kardama Muni has and Mother Devahuti have led their life is really a signature for a perfect Grihastha life, because the perfection of the Grihastha life in achieving that final shelter of the Supreme Lord, because ultimately Ante Narayana Smriti, we would be tested at the time when we are leaving our body, how we are able to remember Krishna. Because Anta Kalecha Mameva Smaran Muktva Kalevaram Yah Prayati Samad Bhavam Yati Na Asti Atra Sanchaya. So at the end of life, if we can somehow or other remember Krishna, then we can go back to Krishna's abode. And therefore, when we enter into Grihastha life, the same goal needs to be reinstated. And just like in the life of Kardama Muni, we saw how his life together with Mother Devahuti was fully dedicated to spiritual cultivation. Now, spiritual cultivation does not mean that their life was devoid of fun. Their life was devoid of, it was a very morose sort of existence. But rather, their life was filled with adventure. It was filled with fun. So here, assisting one another is involving also assisting one another by understanding each other's needs and try to see how we can serve each other so that they can overcome the current set of needs and go to the higher platform. So we know that our spiritual journey can be completed not by artificially giving up our desires and needs, but how we can actually systematically and more naturally win over those lower forces. And therefore, the husband and wife together can act as that strong fortress, and in this way make the journey successful. Thank you very much. Let me see if there is any discussion. I don't even know whether there is any time for discussion, but that's what I wanted to share. You can see the 4 goals are wonderfully carried out by this couple, seeing the life as a spiritual cultivation, and every single action from their side was purposefully driven, guided by spiritual authorities, and they were assisting each other in the journey back to Godhead, and they also exemplified as great parents in accepting dependence and also responsible for defining the course of their life back to Godhead.
Thank you so much, Parma Rupa Prabhu. Just a question. When you're presenting this as, especially this slide, the 4 goals of married or Grihastha life, with, I guess, in a contemporary context, with the evolving picture of what is a family, for example, how do you see that possibly fitting in within this Vedic context of Grihastha ashram?
Right. So we can see that what has changed in the modern context is just the surroundings in a big way, right? And therefore, as far as the elements of consciousness is concerned, we can still be following in the lead of these wonderful devotees. So now, in what way the modern context has changed? So we can see that our spiritual cultivation these days doesn't involve going to or receding to a solitary place and then engaging in the austerity. But the recommended process for the age of Kali is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So the husband and wife can be together serving the Supreme Lord just by chanting together in a very simple manner, by organizing their life in such a way that Krishna is in the center of the household. And then the nature of engagement in this material world in a modern context has also significantly changed. So those engagements may be externally very different from the traditional Vedic culture, but one can still carry the consciousness of pleasing Krishna within those specific sphere of material activities. And therefore one can still carry that in the Grihastha life. I can cultivate myself very nicely, and I can still be very purposeful, that when I'm working in the office, my purpose is no longer to please my boss immediately, please my immediate boss, but to please the Supreme Lord. And then because of the nature of affairs in the material world, in today's context, the wife may be also working. So it's not that the wife, not only the husband is working, and therefore it does not have to carry that stereotype that, okay, the husband is going to work and the wife is staying at home, but one can still operate in a modern way, and yet one can see where are the different needs that can be facilitated in such a way that they can be all aligned with respect to serving the Supreme Lord. And likewise, to raise children in the modern context is also quite different from the Vedic setup. So the best thing that one can do is that one can create a spiritually nourishing environment without being pushy and forceful for the children to take up Krishna consciousness. But rather, a lot of attention can go to how can we create a very uplifting environment, an encouraging environment in the household, so that the dependents feel drawn towards the spiritual activities naturally. So in this way, you can see that all of these points can be served very much in the modern context, because what has changed is just the externals, but the internals can still remain very faithfully aligned with the messages of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Is that okay, Prabhu?
Absolutely. It was a beautiful explanation, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Oh, my daughter agrees. But I don't see any other questions in the chat, either on Zoom or on YouTube. So I think we'll be good to close it out. So I want to thank you so much, Paramarupa Prabhu, for accepting this invitation and giving that very beautiful and practical and relatable presentation of this chapter. So, Hare Krishna.
Krishna Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Thus ends the Sunday feast. Hare Krishna. Have a wonderful rest of your day.